Hey guys, tonight we are slipping into a world of matching sweaters, secret rituals, and enough social rules to fill a small library. We are talking about the 1960s American sorority, specifically what life was really like inside those big brick houses where young women learned etiquette, formed lifelong friendships, and quietly navigated expectations so precise they could make your head spin. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these quiet corners of history where nostalgia and curiosity meet. And thank you, truly, to the viewer who suggested this topic. Your ideas shape this channel in ways I can never fully express, and I am deeply grateful. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I know someone out there is tucked in at 2:37 a.m, eating crackers in bed, confidently pretending this counts as productive evening activity. And speaking of settling in, the channel is now live on Spotify. If you prefer listening there, the link is in the description. Just another quiet way to let these stories keep you company. Now dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise breeze, wiggle down under your blanket, and get comfortable. Really comfortable. Like I am not moving for 8 hours unless there is a legitimate emergency comfortable. Because tonight we're exploring a world where pearl necklaces were mandatory, curfews were sacred, and sisterhood meant something far more complex than matching sweatshirts. A world where young women lived together under one roof, bound by tradition, expectation, and a social code written decades before they were born. Have you ever wondered what a Tuesday evening actually felt like in a sorority house in 1964? What did the living room smell like after dinner? What did pledges whisper about in their shared bedrooms? What were the unspoken rules everyone followed but no one ever wrote down? How many hours did they spend rehearsing for formal events, and what happened behind closed doors during chapter meetings? And more importantly, could you survive a single week in that world? Could you handle the white gloves, the etiquette lessons, the constant supervision, the whispered gossip, the pressure to be poised and polished every single moment, and the knowledge that one misstep could cost you your reputation? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1962. You're a sorority girl now. Your housemother is already awake. Your sisters are gathering in the dining room, and the day is just beginning. Let us start with the house itself. Your sorority house sits proudly on a tree-lined street where every building looks like it was designed to impress parents and intimidate freshmen. The house is massive, 3 stories of red brick and white columns, with a wide front porch where sisters gather on warm evenings, their laughter drifting across the lawn like wind chimes. The front door is always polished, the windows always gleaming, the lawn always perfectly manicured. This house is not just a place to live. It is a symbol, a statement, a carefully maintained monument to tradition, elegance, and the idea that young women can be moulded into something refined. You approach it on move-in day with a suitcase in each hand and a knot of nervousness sitting heavy in your chest. The house looms larger than you expected, more imposing, more permanent. Your mother walks beside you, straightening her hat, clearly impressed. Your father carries the heavy trunk, grunting slightly as he climbs the front steps. The door swings open before you can knock, and a girl with perfect posture and a practiced smile welcomes you inside. The foyer is grand. That is the only word for it. A crystal chandelier hangs from the ceiling, catching the afternoon light and scattering it across walls painted a soft cream. A curved staircase rises to the upper floors, the banister polished to a shine that reflects your nervous face back at you. To your left is the formal living room, furnished with velvet sofas, antique side tables, and oil portraits of chapter founders whose stern expressions suggest they did not tolerate nonsense. To your right is the dining room, visible through French doors, where a long table stretches beneath another chandelier. Everything smells faintly of lemon polish, fresh flowers, and something you cannot quite place. Maybe lavender, maybe just the scent of old money and older traditions. The floors are hardwood, gleaming and spotless. The rugs are Persian, or at least expensive enough to look Persian. Every surface is dusted. Every picture frame is straight. The house feels less like a college residence and more like a museum where you're expected to live carefully, quietly, without leaving fingerprints. Other girls and their families move through the space, everyone dressed nicely, everyone speaking in hushed, respectful tones as though the house itself demands reverence. You catch glimpses of your future sisters, girls in plaid skirts and cardigans, their hair styled, their smiles warm but appraising. They are sizing you up, just as you are sizing them up, everyone wondering who will become friends, who will become roommates, who will clash. Your room is on the 3rd floor, up 2 flights of stairs that seem to stretch longer with each step. The stairwell is narrow, lined with frame photographs of past pledge classes, rows of young women in matching outfits, their faces frozen in smiles that all look slightly the same. You pass the 2nd floor, where doors stand open, revealing glimpses of organised chaos, girls unpacking, mothers fussing over curtains, fathers trying to figure out where to put things. When you finally reach your room, it is smaller than you imagined, but not unwelcoming. 3 beds, 3 desks, 3 narrow closets. The walls are plain, painted a soft yellow that tries to be cheerful. The window overlooks the street, and you can see other Greek houses lining the block, each one a fortress of tradition and expectation. You set your suitcase down, take a breath, and realize this is home now. For better or worse, this house, with its rules and rituals and relentless polish, is where you will spend the next 4 years becoming whoever you are meant to be. Inside the house, rules are not suggestions, they are law, and the housemother is the quiet, elegant enforcer of every single one. Mrs. Henderson, or whatever name she goes by in your chapter, lives on the 1st floor in a suite that smells faintly of lavender and mothballs. She's older, dignified, and impossibly aware of everything happening under her roof. She knows when you skip breakfast. She knows when you come home 3 minutes past curfew. She knows when you are upset, even when you are pretending not to be, and she delivers corrections with the same gentle firmness one might use when training a very expensive show dog. You meet her officially on your 2nd day. She calls you into her sitting room, a cosy space filled with floral furniture, lace doilies, and framed photographs of decades of sorority girls. She pours you tea from a delicate porcelain pot, gestures for you to sit, and then studies you with eyes that miss absolutely nothing. She asks about your family, your major, your goals. She listens carefully, nodding, occasionally making small approving sounds. But beneath the pleasantries you sense she's gathering information, cataloguing your strengths, your weaknesses, the places where you might need guidance or correction. Mrs. Henderson does not yell. She does not need to. Her power lies in her calm, steady presence, the way she can make you feel both cared for and slightly terrified with a single raised eyebrow. She moves through the house like a benevolent ghost, appearing suddenly in hallways, at the bottom of staircases, in doorways you thought were empty. She notices when you look tired. She notices when you've been crying. She notices when your skirt hem is uneven, or your shoes are scuffed. Her corrections are delivered softly, almost kindly. A word in your ear as you pass, a gentle suggestion after dinner, a note slipped under your door reminding you of the house standards. She never embarrasses you publicly, but she never lets anything slide either. You learn quickly that Mrs. Henderson sees everything, hears everything, and forgets nothing. She knows which girls are homesick, which ones are struggling academically, Which one's a dating boy she does not approve of? But she is not cruel. In fact, in her own way, she is deeply caring. When you get sick with the flu, she brings you soup and sits by your bed, feeling your forehead with a cool hand. When you receive bad news from home, she appears with tissues and a quiet space to cry. When you're overwhelmed by exams and expectations, she reminds you to breathe, to rest, to remember that perfection is not required, only effort. She also enforces curfew with the dedication of a military general. At 10 p.m. on weeknights, midnight on weekends, the front door locks. If you are late, she will be waiting in the foyer, arms crossed, disappointment radiating from her like heat from a stove. She will ask where you were. She will ask why you did not call. She will remind you that rules exist for your safety, your reputation, and the honour of the chapter. And then she will assign consequences, extra kitchen duty, loss of social privileges, a letter sent home to your parents. You resent her sometimes. You complain about her with your sisters, whispering late at night about how unfair she is, how old-fashioned, how impossibly strict. But deep down you know she is doing her job. She's keeping you safe in a world that does not always feel safe. She's teaching you responsibility, accountability, and the uncomfortable truth that freedom always comes with boundaries. And years later, when you look back on your time in the sorority house, you will remember Mrs. Henderson not as a jailer, but as a steady, grounding presence in a chaotic time of your life. Your bedroom is on the 3rd floor, a small but tidy space you share with 2 other girls. The room holds 3 narrow beds, 3 small desks, and exactly 0 privacy. Your roommates are Linda, a bubbly blonde from Ohio who irons everything including her socks, and Barbara, a quiet pre-med student who studies until midnight and then studies some more. You learn quickly that living this close to other people means negotiating everything. When the lights go out, who gets the mirror first, and how loudly you can cry when a boy breaks your heart. The walls are thin, the closets are smaller, and somehow, despite the lack of space, you will look back on this room with a tenderness you cannot quite explain. The beds are arranged along 3 walls, leaving a narrow path down the middle. Your bed is by the window, which you initially think is lucky until you realise it also means you're responsible for opening and closing the curtains, and that on cold nights, the draught sneaks through the old glass and wraps around you like an uninvited guest. Linda's bed is across from yours, always perfectly made, her stuffed animals arranged by size on her pillow. Barbara's bed is near the door, perpetually unmade, buried under textbooks and index cards covered in her meticulous handwriting. Each of you has a small desk, though desk is a generous term for a wobbly table with a single drawer. You arrange your things carefully, textbooks stacked, a jar of pens, a framed photo of your family, a small lamp that casts a warm yellow glow. Linda's desk is covered in photographs, letters from her boyfriend, and a collection of perfume bottles that she rotates depending on her mood. Barbara's desk is clinical, organised, terrifying in its efficiency, everything labelled, colour-coded, scheduled. The closet situation is absurd. 3 girls, 1 narrow closet, and enough clothing to open a small boutique. You negotiate space like diplomats negotiating a peace treaty. You each get 1/3 of the hanging rod, 1 shelf, 1 section of floor. You learn to fold things that should not be folded, and to hang things that would be better off folded. You share hangers. You borrow each other's clothes, sometimes with permission, sometimes without. You develop a complex system of understanding what belongs to whom, and what has become communal property through sheer repetition. Privacy does not exist. When one of you changes clothes, the other 2 politely look away, or pretend to, though the room is so small that looking away is more symbolic than effective. When one of you cries, the other 2 hear it, feel it, and eventually crawl into bed beside you to ask what's wrong. When one of you receives a phone call from a boy, the other two eavesdrop shamelessly and then demand a full recap the moment the call ends. You learn each other's habits with the intimacy of people who have no choice. Linda hums while she gets ready in the morning, the same 3 bars of a song you can never quite identify. Barbara talks in her sleep, muttering medical terminology that sounds both impressive and concerning. You apparently snore lightly when you're overtired, a fact Linda gleefully informs you of one morning, and which Barbara confirms with scientific detachment. At night, after lights out, the 3 of you talk in the darkness. You talk about boys, classes, your futures, your fears. You talk about whether you will get married, have careers, move away from your hometowns. You talk about the civil rights movement happening beyond your campus, about the war in Vietnam, about whether the world you are inheriting is the world you want. These conversations feel sacred, honest in a way daytime conversations rarely are. The darkness makes you brave, the closeness makes you vulnerable, and somehow, despite the lack of space, despite the snoring and the borrowed clothes and the constant negotiation, this room becomes home. You will remember the way the morning light slants through the window. You will remember Linda's perfume and Barbara's late-night study sessions. You will remember feeling cramped, crowded, and completely understood. Mornings in the sorority house begin with a knock on your door at 6:45 a.m, sharp. No one sleeps in. No one skips breakfast. You stumble out of bed, hair in rollers, face still creased from the pillow, and shuffle toward the communal bathroom where a line of girls already waits. The bathroom is chaos, hairdryers roaring, makeup compacts clicking open, someone crying softly in a toilet stall because her calculus exam is today and she is not ready. You brush your teeth standing shoulder to shoulder with your sisters, all of you moving in synchronized exhaustion, bound together by the shared misery of being awake this early. The knock is never gentle. It is brisk, efficient, the kind of knock that says, "I do not care if you are dreaming. It is time to rejoin the world." You groan, roll over, and briefly consider pretending you did not hear it. But Linda is already sitting up, stretching, her hair somehow still perfectly curled despite 8 hours of sleep. Barbara has been awake for 30 minutes, already reviewing flashcards by the dim light of her desk lamp. You swing your legs out of bed, your feet hitting the cold floor with a shock that fully wakes you. You grab your robe, your toiletry bag, and your towel, and you join the procession of half-awake girls shuffling down the hallway toward the communal bathroom. The hallway smells like hairspray and toothpaste, and the faint lingering scent of last night's popcorn someone made in the kitchenette. The bathroom is a large institutional space with white tile, 2 bright fluorescent lights, and a row of sinks that are never quite clean enough. Every morning it transforms into a competitive arena where 50 girls attempt to get ready in the same 2-hour window. You stake your claim at a sink, setting down your bag, and you begin the ritual. Wash your face, brush your teeth, apply cold cream, then moisturizer, then foundation, then powder. The routine is meditative, grounding, the same sequence every single morning. Around you, the noise is overwhelming. Hairdryers roar like jet engines. Someone is singing off-key in the shower. 2 girls argue over who took whose eyeliner. Someone else is panicking because she cannot find her good stockings, and her presentation is in an hour, and she cannot present in wrinkled stockings. She absolutely cannot. You tune it out, focusing on your reflection, on the careful work of making yourself look presentable, polished, ready to face the world. The mirrors fog from shower steam. The air is thick, humid, smelling of shampoo and hairspray and a dozen competing perfumes. You reach for your mascara, carefully applying it while trying not to jab yourself in the eye. a skill you have mostly mastered but occasionally fail at spectacularly. Beside you, a girl you do not know well is meticulously drawing on her eyebrows. On your other side, someone is teasing her hair into a bouffant so tall it defies physics. You hear someone crying in one of the stalls, soft, muffled sobs that she's trying to hide but cannot quite manage. No one mentions it directly, but someone slips a tissue under the stall door. Someone else asks gently if she's okay. The crying girl mumbles something about an exam, about not being ready, about feeling overwhelmed. Two other girls offer to quiz her at breakfast. The crying softens. This is sisterhood. Messy, intrusive, and ultimately kind. You finish your makeup, wrap your hair in a towel, and return to your room to get dressed. Linda is already dressed, her outfit perfectly coordinated, her hair sprayed into submission. Barbara is still in her pajamas reading a medical journal, insisting she has plenty of time. You pull on your skirt, your blouse, your cardigan. You check your appearance in the small mirror. You look tired. You look like every other girl in this house, polished, poised, and running on far too little sleep. By the time you make it back downstairs, it is 7:25. Breakfast is in 5 minutes. You made it. Barely. And tomorrow, you will do it all again. Breakfast is served promptly at 7:30, and attendance is mandatory. The dining room is formal, almost intimidatingly so, with a long mahogany table set with cloth napkins and matching china. You take your assigned seat, smooth your skirt, and wait for grace to be said. The housemother sits at the head of the table, surveying the room with the quiet authority of a general inspecting troops. Breakfast itself is predictable. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and occasionally a grapefruit half that no one actually wants. Conversation is polite, measured, careful. You learn quickly that breakfast is not just about food. It is about posture, manners, and proving you can function as a lady even when you're still half asleep. The dining room chairs are heavy, upholstered in a dark green fabric that probably looked elegant when it was new, but now just looks old. You pull your chair out carefully, quietly, because scraping it across the floor earns a sharp look from Mrs. Henderson. You sit with your back straight, your hands folded in your lap, waiting. Around you, your sisters do the same, a room full of young women performing composure. The table is set beautifully. White tablecloth, ironed smooth, plates with gold trim, napkins folded into crisp triangles. A small vase of fresh flowers sits in the centre, roses or carnations depending on the week and the budget. The silverware gleams. Everything gleams. You sometimes wonder who polishes all this. Who sets the table every morning? Who ensures that breakfast feels like a formal event rather than a casual meal? Mrs. Henderson clears her throat, a soft sound that immediately silences the room. She bows her head. Everyone follows. Grace is short, familiar, the same prayer every morning. You mouth the words without thinking, your mind still foggy with sleep. Amen. The word echoes softly around the table. Forks lift. Breakfast begins. The food arrives on serving platters, passed from person to person with careful politeness. Scrambled eggs, slightly overcooked, with a faint rubbery texture. Toast, buttered, cut into triangles. A bowl of jam, mostly grape, occasionally strawberry. A pitcher of orange juice that someone always forgets to pass until someone else asks for it directly. You take small portions, aware that taking too much looks greedy, taking too little looks finicky. Conversation is subdued, still waking up alongside the coffee. Someone mentions an upcoming exam. Someone else talks about a mixer scheduled for Friday night. A junior asks if anyone has seen her psychology textbook. She swears she left it in the living room, but now it has vanished. The conversation flows gently, politely, never too loud, never too animated. Breakfast is not the time for drama or emotion. Breakfast is the time for restraint. You take a bite of eggs. They taste like every institutional breakfast you've ever had. Bland, functional, nourishing in the most technical sense. You reach for your toast, spread jam carefully, avoiding dripping any on the tablecloth. You sip your orange juice, which is cold and slightly too sweet. Around you, girls eat quietly, efficiently, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed ballet. Mrs. Henderson watches, saying little but missing nothing. She notices when someone slouches. She notices when someone speaks with their mouth full. She notices when someone forgets to use their napkin. She does not correct these infractions immediately, but she files them away to be addressed later, privately, with gentle firmness. Halfway through breakfast, someone drops a fork. It clatters against the china plate with a sound that feels deafening in the quiet room. The girl who dropped it freezes, mortified. Apologies tumble out of her mouth. Mrs. Henderson simply nods, says it is fine, and gestures for her to continue. But the girl's face is pink, embarrassed, and you feel a pang of sympathy. You have dropped things too. Everyone has. The rules of this house are so precise that breaking even the smallest one feels catastrophic. Breakfast ends at 8:15. Mrs. Henderson announces it is time to clear the table. Everyone rises in unison, carrying their plates to the kitchen, scraping leftovers into the compost bin, stacking dishes neatly by the sink. You rinse your plate, dry your hands, and grab your books from the hallway. Another meal survived, another day begun, and tomorrow you will sit at this same table, eat these same eggs, and do it all over again. After breakfast, you gather your books, check your appearance one last time in the hall mirror, and head to class. Campus in the 1960s is a strange blend of tradition and change. Students still dress formally, skirts and blouses for women, slacks and button-downs for men. But beneath the polished surface, something is shifting. You walk past protest signs being painted in the quad, past students debating civil rights and Vietnam, past a world that feels like it is waking up from a long sleep. But inside the sorority house, tradition holds firm. You're expected to attend class, maintain good grades, and carry yourself with the grace and dignity your chapter is known for. No exceptions. The walk to campus takes 10 minutes, down tree-lined sidewalks where the morning sun filters through leaves and dapples the pavement. You walk with a group of sisters, books clutched against your chest, heels clicking in rhythm. Conversations drift between complaints about early morning classes and speculation about whether Professor Morrison will actually show up today or cancel again like he did last week. The campus is beautiful in a way that feels almost unreal. Brick buildings covered in ivy, wide lawns where students sprawl with textbooks, a bell tower that chimes the hour with a resonance you can feel in your chest. It looks like a postcard, like the idealized version of college that brochures promise and reality rarely delivers. But the beauty is complicated now, layered with tension. As you cross the quad, you pass a group of students clustered around a folding table covered in flyers. They are organizing something, a sit-in, a march, a demonstration. Their voices are urgent, passionate, arguing about strategy and timing and whether the administration will listen. You slow down, curious, but one of your sisters tugs your elbow gently. "We will be late," she says. And so you keep walking, even though part of you wants to stop, to listen, to understand what is happening beyond the carefully controlled world of the sorority house. Your first class is English literature, held in a cramped lecture hall that smells like old books and chalk dust. You find a seat near the middle, not too close to the front where the professor might call on you, not so far back that you cannot see the board. You open your notebook, uncap your pen, and wait. Around you, students chatter, comparing notes from last week's reading, complaining about the essay due next Monday. The professor enters, a rumpled man in his 50s with wild hair and a tendency to go off on tangents about symbolism. He begins talking immediately, passionately about the novel you were supposed to read. You take notes, your handwriting neat and careful, underlining key points, jotting down quotes he emphasizes. You're a good student. Not brilliant, but diligent, reliable, the kind of student who shows up, does the work and earns solid grades through sheer persistence. Between classes, you meet your sisters in the student union, a bustling building that smells like coffee and cigarette smoke. You claim a table, spread out your books, and review notes together. Someone bought donuts. Someone else complains about her biology lab. The conversation is easy, familiar, grounding. You belong here, in this group, in this space, in this strange in-between world of education and expectation. But you also notice the world shifting around you. Newspapers left on tables carry headlines about protests, about marches, about young people demanding change. Conversations at nearby tables are heated, political, urgent. A boy walks past wearing a button that says "Make love, not war." A girl hands you a flyer about a rally for civil rights. You take it, fold it carefully, tuck it into your notebook, unsure what to do with it but unwilling to throw it away. Your afternoon class is history, taught by a professor who speaks in a monotone that could lull anyone to sleep. You fight to stay focused, taking notes even when your mind wanders. You think about your essay. You think about the mixer on Friday. You think about whether you will ever understand what is happening in the world, whether your education is preparing you for it or insulating you from it. When classes end, you walk back to the sorority house, tired, thoughtful, carrying the weight of information you're not sure what to do with. The house appears on the horizon, solid and unchanging, a refuge and a cage all at once. If you are a pledge, life is even more regimented. Pledging is not hazing in the brutal sense, though it certainly feels like a test of endurance. You memorize the sorority history, learn the Greek alphabet backward, and spend hours rehearsing songs, chants, and rituals you're not yet allowed to fully understand. Older sisters quiz you in hallways, correct your posture, and remind you that pledging is a privilege, not a right. You clean the living room, serve at chapter dinners, and smile through the exhaustion, because complaining is not an option. Pledging is about proving you belong, that you can handle the pressure, that you are worthy of the letters you hope to wear. The pledge manual becomes your Bible, a slim booklet filled with names, dates, and facts you're expected to memorize verbatim. You carry it everywhere, reviewing it in spare moments, whispering the founders' names under your breath like an incantation. There are 7 founders, each with a full name, a birth year, and a brief biography you must recite on command. You practice in the bathroom mirror, alone in your room, walking to class. The information loops endlessly in your mind until you dream about it. Older sisters stop you at random moments to quiz you. In the hallway, on your way to dinner, walking out the front door, they smile sweetly and say, "Tell me about the founding chapter," or "Recite the Greek alphabet backward," or "What year was our chapter established?" You answer as quickly and accurately as you can, heart pounding, aware that every interaction is an evaluation. They nod when you are correct, gently correct you when you are wrong, and always remind you that pledging is a privilege. There are also tasks, endless tasks. You and your pledge sisters rotate through a schedule of house duties. Monday you clean the living room, vacuuming the Persian rugs, dusting the oil portraits, straightening the sofa cushions until they look like they have never been sat on. Tuesday you set tables for dinner, folding napkins into perfect triangles, polishing silverware until it gleams. Wednesday you help in the kitchen, washing dishes, drying plates, scrubbing pots until your hands are raw and wrinkled. The work is tedious, exhausting, and never acknowledged as anything other than expected. You do not receive praise for cleaning well, but you absolutely receive criticism for cleaning poorly. A crooked picture frame, a dusty shelf, a fork with a water spot. These small failures are pointed out gently but firmly, reminders that attention to detail matters, that sloppiness is unacceptable. You also serve at chapter dinners, standing quietly along the wall while initiated members eat. You refill water glasses, clear plates, bring out dessert. You are present but not quite part of the gathering, a ghost hovering at the edges, learning by observation. You watch how the older girls interact, how they laugh, how they navigate disagreements, how they perform sisterhood with a grace that looks effortless, but you're starting to realize is carefully practiced. Songs are another requirement. The sorority has dozens of songs, some official, some traditional, all sung at various events and gatherings. You practice them with your pledge sisters, gathered in someone's room, singing softly so as not to disturb study hours. The melodies are simple, the lyrics often sentimental, full of references to sisterhood, loyalty, and lifelong bonds. You feel silly singing them at first, self-conscious, but over time they become familiar, comforting even. They're a shared language, a way of signalling that you belong to something larger than yourself. There are also events, endless events. A tea with alumni where you stand in the corner and smile politely. A philanthropy fundraiser where you sell baked goods on the quad. A mixer with a fraternity where you're expected to be charming, gracious, and representational. Every event is another test, another opportunity to prove you can handle the expectations of membership. And through it all, you are watched. Not cruelly, but constantly. The older sisters are evaluating you, not just your knowledge or your work ethic, but your character, your attitude, your ability to fit into the chapter culture. They notice when you complain. They notice when you help another pledge without being asked. They notice when you're tired but push through anyway. Pledging is exhausting. Some nights you collapse into bed wondering if it is worth it, if these letters you're working toward actually mean anything. But then you look at your pledge sisters, equally exhausted, equally determined, and you feel a flicker of solidarity. You're in this together, and that somehow makes it bearable. On Thursday afternoons, the house hosts tea. This is not optional. You put on your best dress, your pearls, your white gloves, and you descend the staircase into the living room where alumni, faculty wives, and distinguished guests gather. Tea is poured from silver pots. Tiny sandwiches are served on tiered trays. Conversation is polite, almost painfully so, and you practice the art of smiling, nodding, and saying just enough to seem engaged without saying anything that might be remembered as controversial. Afternoon tea is where you learn that being a sorority girl is not just about sisterhood. It is about performance, about projecting an image of refinement that the outside world expects from you. Preparing for tea begins hours in advance. The living room is cleaned until it sparkles. Fresh flowers are arranged in vases. The silver tea service is polished to a mirror shine. Chairs are positioned carefully, creating small conversational clusters. The good china is brought out, the set with the delicate floral pattern that gets used only for special occasions. Everything must be perfect, because tea is not just an event, it is a showcase, a demonstration that your chapter knows how to uphold tradition with grace and elegance. You dress carefully, choosing your best dress, the one with the Peter Pan collar and the full skirt that swishes when you walk. You fasten your pearls, a strand your grandmother gave you, smooth and cool against your skin. You pull on your white gloves, the fabric tight and slightly stiff, your hands feeling formal and foreign inside them. You check your hair, your makeup, your posture. You practice your smile in the mirror, the polite demure smile that suggests you're delighted to be here, even though your stomach is tight with nerves. The guests arrive promptly at 3. Alumni first, older women who graduated decades ago, their faces lined with age and expectation. They wear hats, tailored suits, sensible heels. They greet Mrs. Henderson warmly, then turn their appraising eyes on the current members, scanning for signs of decline or improvement. Faculty wives follow, equally polished, equally watchful. A few community leaders round out the group, women who donate to the chapter or serve on advisory boards. You take your position in the living room, standing near the tea service, ready to pour when asked. The housemother makes introductions, her voice warm and formal. You shake hands, curtsy slightly, murmur polite greetings. The guests settle into chairs, adjusting their skirts, smoothing their gloves. The room hums with refined anticipation. Tea is poured. You lift the heavy silver pot, tilting it carefully over delicate cups, watching the amber liquid stream out, willing your hand not to shake. Sugar cubes are offered with tiny silver tongs. Cream is poured from a matching pitcher. You pass cups on saucers, moving gracefully, mindful of your posture, your expression, the way you're being watched and evaluated even in this simple task. The sandwiches arrive on tiered trays, each one a tiny, meticulously crafted creation. Cucumber with cream cheese, the crusts removed. Egg salad on white bread, cut into triangles, smoked salmon with dill. You offer the tray to each guest, holding it steady while they select one, sometimes two. They murmur thank you, and you nod, smile, move on to the next person. Conversation flows around you, light and carefully neutral. The alumni ask about chapter activities, enrollment numbers, recent philanthropies. They reminisce about their own college years, stories polished from decades of retelling. The faculty wives discuss campus events, upcoming lectures, the weather. You listen, nod, occasionally offer a brief comment when directly addressed, but mostly you remain quiet, attentive, performing the role of gracious hostess. The topics are safe, deliberately so. No one mentions politics, the protests on campus, the war, the civil rights movement, anything that might spark disagreement or discomfort. Instead, the conversation stays shallow, pleasant, skimming across the surface of real life like a stone skipping across water. You refill teacups, offer more sandwiches, clear away empty plates. You smile until your cheeks ache. You stand when you want to sit. You nod when you want to speak. You are gracious, poised, invisible in the way well-trained hostesses are meant to be. And through it all, you are being judged. The alumni are assessing whether this chapter is maintaining standards. The faculty wives are deciding whether to recommend your chapter to their daughters. The community leaders are determining whether your chapter deserves continued support. When tea finally ends, the guests gather their things, offer warm goodbyes, compliment the chapter on such a lovely afternoon. Mrs. Henderson sees them to the door, thanking them for coming, inviting them to return soon. The moment the door closes, the formality shatters. You collapse into a chair, pull off your gloves and exhale. Your sisters laugh, exhausted and relieved. Someone says, "I thought that would never end." Someone else wonders aloud if anyone actually enjoys tea or if everyone is just pretending. You do not know the answer, but you do know you survived another performance, another test of your ability to be the kind of woman this house is trying to shape you into. Every evening from 7 to 9, the house falls into mandatory study hours. The living room becomes a library. Girls sprawl across sofas with textbooks, highlighters, and the quiet determination of students who know their grades reflects not just on themselves, but on the entire chapter. The housemother patrols occasionally, reminding anyone whispering to keep it down. The only sounds are the scratch of pencils, the rustle of turning pages, and the occasional frustrated sigh. Study hours are sacred. They are also suffocating. But you learn to focus, to work under pressure, and to find moments of quiet camaraderie in shared exhaustion. At 6:55, a soft bell rings, signalling 5 minutes until study hours begin. You gather your materials, textbooks, notebooks, pens, highlighters, index cards. Your arms are loaded, heavy with the weight of academic expectation. You make your way to the living room, where other girls are already staking out spots, claiming corners of sofas, draping themselves across armchairs, spreading out on the floor with pillows as cushions. By 7 o'clock the room is full. 50 girls, silent, focused, arranged like a still life of scholarly dedication. The housemother sits in her usual chair near the doorway, a book open in her lap, but her eyes scan the room regularly, ensuring no one is slacking, chatting, or drifting off into daydreams. You settle onto the sofa, your biology textbook open across your lap, a notebook balanced precariously on the armrest. The chapter you need to read is dense, filled with diagrams of cellular structures and terminology that feels like a foreign language. You read slowly, carefully, highlighting key terms, making notes in the margins. Your hand cramps from writing, your eyes strain from focusing, but you keep going because stopping is not an option. Around you, your sisters are equally absorbed. Linda sits cross-legged on the floor, her history textbook propped against the coffee table, her lips moving silently as she reads. Barbara is in an armchair surrounded by medical journals, her expression one of fierce concentration. Someone in the corner is working on a math problem set, her pencil scratching numbers in rapid succession. Another girl is reading a novel for English class, occasionally pausing to scribble notes on a separate piece of paper. The silence is thick, but not uncomfortable. It is a shared silence, a collective effort to push through the work that college demands. You can hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking steadily. You can hear someone shift positions, their book sliding slightly. You can hear the faint rustle of someone turning a page. These small sounds become a rhythm, a reassurance that you are not alone in this struggle. Occasionally someone whispers a question, leaning toward a neighbour. What did the professor say about the midterm? Do you have notes from last Tuesday? The housemother clears her throat, a soft sound that carries weight. The whispering stops immediately. An hour in, your focus begins to waver. Your mind drifts. You think about the mixer tomorrow night, about what you will wear, about whether the boy you like will be there. You catch yourself daydreaming and force your attention back to the textbook. Photosynthesis, chloroplasts, light-dependent reactions. You read the same paragraph 3 times before it finally makes sense. Someone sighs audibly, a sound of pure frustration. You glance up and see a sophomore staring at her calculus book with a look of betrayal, as though the equations have personally offended her. You understand. Some nights, the work feels impossible, overwhelming, like you're trying to bail out the ocean with a teaspoon. But there is also something comforting about study hours. The structure, the routine, the knowledge that everyone around you is working just as hard, struggling through the same exhaustion. You're not competing with each other, not here, not now. You're all just trying to survive, to keep your grades up, to prove that sorority girls are not shallow or frivolous, but serious students capable of academic excellence. At 8:30, Mrs. Henderson announces a 10-minute break. The room erupts into quiet motion. Girls stand, stretch, rub their eyes. Someone heads to the kitchen for water. Someone else collapses dramatically onto the floor, declaring she cannot read another word. You stand, roll your shoulders, feel your spine crack in 3 places. The break is brief but necessary, a chance to reset before the final push. At 8:40, the bell rings again. Break is over. Everyone returns to their spots, reopens their books, and the silence descends once more. The last hour is always the hardest. Your brain feels full, overstuffed, like there is no room left for new information. But you push through, because giving up reflects poorly not just on you, but on every girl wearing your letters. At 9 o'clock, the final bell rings. Study hours are over. The relief is immediate, palpable. Books slam shut. Girls groan, laugh, complain loudly about how much they still have to do. You gather your things, your brain buzzing with half-absorbed information, and you head upstairs, already dreading tomorrow night when you'll do this all over again. The house has exactly one telephone located in a tiny booth off the main hallway, and it is the source of endless drama. Boys call, parents call, friends call, and every conversation is semi-public, conducted in hurried whispers, while a line of impatient sisters waits outside. You learn to keep calls short, to speak in code when necessary, and to accept that privacy is a luxury you no longer have. The telephone booth becomes a confessional, a lifeline, and a battlefield, all in one cramped, poorly ventilated space. The booth itself is barely large enough for one person. A wooden bench, a small shelf for a notepad, a wall-mounted telephone with a rotary dial, and a door that closes but does not lock. The walls are thin. Sound carries. If you speak above a whisper, anyone standing in the hallway can hear every word. And someone is always standing in the hallway, waiting their turn, tapping their foot, checking their watch, radiating impatience. There is a system, informal but strictly observed. Your name goes on a list posted beside the booth. When the current occupant finishes, she checks the list and calls out the next name. You wait nervously, hoping your call comes before dinner, before study hours, before the person you are hoping to hear from gives up and hangs up. The list grows throughout the day, names scrawled in different handwriting, some neat, some hurried, some underlined for emphasis. When your turn finally comes, you slip into the booth, pull the door closed, and sit on the narrow bench. The space smells like perfume, cigarette smoke from someone who snuck a smoke earlier, and faintly like wood polish. The phone is heavy, black, slightly sticky from use. You dial carefully, listening to the mechanical clicking of the rotary dial as it resets, waiting for the ringing to begin. When the person answers, you speak quickly, quietly, aware of the line waiting outside. If it is your parents, the conversation is dutiful, affectionate, updates about classes, reassurances that you're eating enough, promises to write more often. If it is a friend, the conversation is faster, gossip exchanged, plans made, questions asked and answered in shorthand only the two of you understand. If it is a boy, the conversation becomes something else entirely. Your voice drops lower, softer. Your words are chosen carefully, aware that your sisters are listening, cataloguing every word, every inflection, ready to interrogate you the moment you emerge. You laugh at his jokes, even the ones that are not funny. You agree to plans, even when you're not sure you want to go. You perform interest, enthusiasm, charm, all while watching the clock, knowing your time is limited. The door opens suddenly. Someone outside taps on it, mouthing the word hurry. You nod, hold up one finger, wrap up the conversation as quickly as you can. Okay, yes, I will see you then. Yes. Okay, goodbye. You hang up, your heart still racing, and step out into the hallway where 3 girls immediately descend on you. Who was that? What did he say? Are you going out with him? Is he cute? You answer as vaguely as you can, smiling, deflecting, trying to protect some small piece of the conversation from becoming public property. But it is useless. By dinner, everyone will know you got a call from a boy. By tomorrow, rumours will circulate about whether you're dating, whether he is serious, whether this could turn into something real. Sometimes the phone rings at inconvenient times. During dinner, during study hours, during chapter meetings. Whoever is nearest answers, then shouts through the house announcing the call. Phone for Linda, phone for Barbara, phone for you. You drop whatever you're doing and run, hoping the caller has not already hung up in frustration. The worst is when someone calls with bad news, a family emergency, a breakup delivered over crackling long-distance lines, a friend crying, needing comfort you cannot give through a telephone in a public booth while 10 people wait outside. You try to console them quietly, your voice breaking, tears threatening, but you cannot fall apart here. Not now, not with an audience just beyond the door. The telephone booth is many things. A connection to the world outside the sorority house. A reminder that you still have a life, a family, relationships that exist beyond these walls. But it is also a reminder that privacy is gone, that every conversation is shared, examined, discussed. The booth is too small, the call's too public, and the line too long, but it is all you have, so you wait your turn, say what you need to say, and hang up, knowing tomorrow you will wait in line all over again. Dating in the 1960s sorority world is formal, ritualized, and closely monitored. When a boy asks you out, the invitation comes days in advance, often through a written note or a phone call to the house. You accept or decline with careful politeness, aware that your decision will be discussed by your sisters. Dates are chaperoned, at least in spirit. You're expected home by curfew, usually 10 p.m. on weeknights, midnight on weekends. Your housemother waits up, watching from the window as your date walks you to the door. He does not come inside. He does not linger. He tips his hat, you smile, and you slip back into the house, where your sisters will immediately demand details. The note arrives on a Tuesday, delivered by a fraternity brother who knocks on the front door and asks for you by name. Mrs. Henderson accepts it, reads it briefly with her X-ray vision that sees through envelopes, and then summons you to the foyer. She hands you the envelope with a look that says she already knows what it contains and has formed opinions about it. You take it upstairs, your heart beating faster than it should, and open it alone in your room. The handwriting is neat, careful. The paper is good quality, not notebook paper torn from a spiral. He asks if you would like to have dinner on Saturday evening. He suggests a restaurant downtown, the one with white tablecloths and a reputation for being respectable. He signs it formally, his full name, no nickname, no casual sign-off. This is not a casual request. This is a formal invitation that requires a formal response. You discuss it with your roommates. Linda immediately declares it romantic. Barbara asks practical questions. Do you like him? Do you know him well? Is he a senior? You're not sure how to answer. You have spoken to him twice, maybe 3 times at mixers and campus events. He seemed nice, polite. He did not try to hold your hand or stand too close. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in your answers, but you do not know him, not really. Still, you accept. You write a reply on your own good stationery, the pale blue set your mother gave you for college. You keep the tone warm but measured, enthusiastic but not overeager. You tell him you would be delighted to join him for dinner on Saturday. You sign it, seal it, and deliver it to his fraternity house the next day, handing it to a boy at the door who promises to pass it along. The days leading up to Saturday are filled with preparation. You borrow a dress from Linda, a navy shirtwaist that fits you better than anything you own. You polish your good shoes. You rehearse conversation topics in your head, safe subjects that will not make you sound stupid or controversial. The weather, classes, campus events, nothing about politics, religion, or anything that might spark disagreement. Saturday arrives. You spend the afternoon getting ready, curling your hair, applying makeup with more care than usual, checking your appearance from every angle. Your sisters offer advice, encouragement, and warnings. Do not laugh too loudly. Do not order the most expensive thing on the menu. Do not talk about other boys. Do smile. Do ask him questions. Do let him pay. He arrives at 6, exactly on time, and waits in the foyer while Mrs. Henderson summons you. You descend the staircase slowly, carefully, aware that half the house is watching from doorways and around corners. He stands when he sees you, smiles, tells you that you look lovely. You thank him, accept the small corsage he offers, and let him pin it to your dress with hands that shake slightly. Mrs. Henderson asks where you will be dining. He tells her. She nods approval. She reminds him of your curfew, her voice pleasant but firm. He assures her you will be home on time. She opens the door and you step outside together into the cool evening air, walking toward his car while your sisters watch from the windows. The date itself is pleasant, if slightly stiff. The restaurant is nice, candlelit, quiet. You order carefully, choosing something moderately priced, easy to eat, unlikely to spill. You make conversation, asking about his major, his family, his plans after graduation. He asks you the same questions, and you answer thoughtfully, aware that everything you say is being evaluated, measured, stored away for future consideration. He does not try to kiss you. When he brings you home 5 minutes before curfew, he walks you to the door, thanks you for a lovely evening, and asks if he might call you again. You say yes because the evening was nice, and because saying no feels too definite, too final. He tips his hat, you smile, and he walks back to his car. The moment you step inside, your sisters descend. How was it? What did you talk about? Did he hold your hand? Will you see him again? You answer as best you can, exhausted by the questions, by the evening, by the performance of it all. Dating is not spontaneous or casual. It is choreographed, monitored, wrapped in expectations so thick you can barely breathe. But this is how it is done. This is how you meet someone, how you build a relationship, one formal, carefully supervised date at a time. Curfew is not negotiable. Miss it, and you face consequences, loss of privileges, extra house duties, a stern conversation with a housemother, or in extreme cases, probation. Every time you return to the house, you sign in on a sheet by the front door, noting the time and your destination. The housemother checks this sheet religiously. She knows where you've been, who you were with, and whether you were honest about it. Curfew teaches responsibility, accountability, and the uncomfortable reality that your freedom is always conditional. The sign-in sheet hangs on a clipboard beside the front door, plain white paper divided into columns: name, destination, time out, time in. Your handwriting appears repeatedly down the page, a chronicle of your comings and goings, evidence of your movements preserved in blue ink. The sheet is changed weekly, the old one filed away in Mrs. Henderson's office, a permanent record of every girl's adherence to or violation of house rules. You learn the rhythm quickly. Before leaving, you sign out your name, the library or the student union, or dinner with a friend, the time you departed. When you return, you sign in, noting the exact minute you walk through the door. The clock in the foyer is set precisely, synchronized with some cosmic standard of timekeeping that allows no margin for error. If that clock says 10:03 and your curfew is 10, you are late. Your watch does not matter. Your excuses do not matter. The clock is law. Mrs. Henderson sits in the living room on weekend nights, a book open in her lap, reading glasses perched on her nose, but her attention is divided. She listens for the sound of the front door, for the soft click of the latch, for footsteps in the foyer. She glances at the clock. She waits. And when you walk in, breathless, hoping you made it in time, she looks up, meets your eyes, and you know immediately whether you're safe or in trouble. Most nights you make it. You leave the party early, Ignore your date's protest that it is still early and walk quickly back to the house, your heels clicking against the sidewalk, your breath visible in the cold night air. You arrive with 2 minutes to spare, sign in, and exhale relief. Another night survived. But some nights you do not make it. The movie runs long, your date's car has trouble starting. You lose track of time, caught up in conversation, in laughter, in the brief illusion that you're not bound by rules and schedules. And then you glance at your watch and panic sets in, cold and immediate. You are going to be late. You run the last 2 blocks, your shoes pinching, your dress tangling around your legs. You burst through the front door at 12:07, flushed, panting, hoping desperately that Mrs. Henderson fell asleep, that she will not notice, that somehow you will escape consequences. But she is there, waiting in the living room, her expression calm, patient, disappointed. She says nothing at first, simply watches as you sign in, your hand shaking slightly as you write the time. Then she speaks, her voice gentle but firm. "Come see me in the morning. We need to talk." The conversation happens after breakfast in her private sitting room. She asks where you were, why you were late, whether this is a pattern or an isolated incident. You explain, apologize, promise it will not happen again. She listens, nods, and then delivers the consequences. You lose your weekend social privileges. You take on extra kitchen duties. You write a letter to your parents explaining what happened and why you understand the importance of curfew. The punishment is not cruel, but it is humiliating. Your sisters know you were late. They know you got in trouble. They whisper about it, not maliciously, but with the casual interest of people observing someone else's misfortune. You become an example, a cautionary tale told to pledges about what happens when you do not take curfew seriously. But beyond the punishment, beyond the embarrassment, curfew teaches you something else. It teaches you that time is not your own, that your freedom is measured in hours and minutes, granted conditionally and revoked easily. It teaches you to plan, to watch the clock, to always leave earlier than you want to. It teaches you that autonomy, real autonomy, is something you do not yet have. Some girls resent it deeply. They argue that they are adults, that college students should not have bedtimes, that the rules are outdated and infantilizing. They are right, of course. But the rules do not change. The housemother does not waver. And so you learn to live within the boundaries, to push against them when you can, but ultimately to accept that this is the cost of membership, the price of belonging to something larger than yourself. Years later, you will look back on curfew with mixed feelings. Part of you will remember the frustration, the nights you missed the end of a party, the boys who did not understand why you had to leave so early. But part of you will also remember the safety of it, the knowledge that someone was waiting up for you, that someone cared enough to enforce rules meant to protect you. Curfew was restrictive, but it was also, in its own strange way, a form of love. Once a week, the entire chapter gathers for the official meeting. These meetings are formal, almost ceremonial, conducted with parliamentary procedure and a seriousness that feels both important and slightly absurd. You discuss house business, vote on new initiatives, address conflicts, and hear updates from the national chapter. The meetings are long, often tedious, but they are also where decisions are made, where sisterhood is tested, and where you learn that democracy, even in a sorority house, is messy, complicated, and necessary. The meetings are held on Monday evenings immediately after dinner in the formal living room where the furniture has been rearranged into rows of chairs facing the front. The chapter president sits at a small table, a gavel resting beside her, the chapter bylaws open in front of her. The secretary sits next to her, pen poised over a notebook, ready to record every motion, every vote, every decision made. You file in quietly, taking your assigned seat, smoothing your skirt, folding your hands in your lap. Attendance is mandatory. Missing a chapter meeting without a valid excuse means a fine, usually $1, which goes into the chapter treasury. The room fills slowly, girls arriving in pairs and groups, chatting softly until the president calls the meeting to order. The gavel comes down with a sharp crack that silences the room immediately. The president stands, surveys the assembled chapter, and begins with the ritual opening, a recitation of the chapter's purpose and values. Words you have heard so many times they have become background noise. But you stand, place your hand over your heart, and recite them anyway. Because this is how meetings begin, with a reminder of what you are all supposed to represent. The secretary reads the minutes from the last meeting, her voice flat, recounting decisions about the upcoming philanthropy event, the budget for spring formal, a proposal to change quiet hours on weeknights. You listen half-heartedly, your mind already drifting to the homework waiting upstairs. The president asks if there are any corrections to the minutes. No one speaks. The minutes are approved. Then comes old business, items carried over from previous meetings. The philanthropy chair presents an update on fundraising efforts. The social chair discusses plans for an upcoming mixer. The scholarship chair reminds everyone that midterm grades are due next week, and that anyone falling below a certain GPA will be placed on academic probation. You shift uncomfortably, hoping your biology grade does not drag you down. New business comes next, and this is where meetings either drag on forever or spark genuine debate. A sophomore proposes a change to the meal plan, suggesting the chapter could save money by having fewer formal dinners. The treasurer supports the idea, presenting numbers, charts, a whole presentation she clearly spent hours preparing. But several older girls object, arguing that formal dinners are tradition, that cutting them would diminish the chapter's prestige. The debate stretches on. Someone makes a motion, someone else seconds it. The president opens the floor for discussion, and suddenly everyone has an opinion. Voices overlap, points are made, countered, made again. The president struggles to maintain order, banging the gavel, reminding everyone to speak one at a time, to address the chair, to follow proper procedure. You sit quietly, unsure whether to contribute. Part of you agrees with the proposal. Formal dinners are expensive and exhausting. But part of you understands the other side, that tradition matters, that letting go of small things can feel like losing something essential. You stay silent, letting others argue, relieved when the vote finally happens and the motion fails narrowly. Then comes the uncomfortable part, addressing conflicts. A girl raises her hand, stands when recognized, and carefully, diplomatically, points out that some members are not cleaning up after themselves in the kitchen. Dishes are left in the sink. Spills are not wiped up. She does not name names, but everyone knows who she's talking about. The accused girls shift in their seats, defensive but silent. The president handles it carefully, reminding everyone that communal living requires mutual respect, that small thoughtless acts create larger problems. She asks the house manager to post a new chore chart to make expectations clearer. Everyone nods. The moment passes, but the tension lingers, a reminder that 50 women living together means 50 different standards of cleanliness, responsibility, consideration. The meeting drags toward 2 hours. Your back aches from sitting. Your mind wanders. Someone proposes forming a committee to review house rules. Someone else suggests hosting a parents' weekend event. Motions are made, seconded, discussed, voted on. The secretary scribbles frantically, trying to keep up. Finally, mercifully, the president announces that all business has been addressed. She asks if there are any announcements. A few girls mention upcoming events, birthday celebrations, reminders about deadlines. Then the president raises the gavel one final time, declares the meeting adjourned, and brings it down with a decisive crack. The room erupts into noise, girls standing, stretching, complaining about how long that took. You gather your things, your mind already shifting to the essay due tomorrow, the studying still ahead. Chapter meetings are necessary, important even, but they are also exhausting. A reminder that being part of something means participating in its governance, even when you would rather be anywhere else. Every sorority has rituals, secret ceremonies performed behind locked doors, known only to initiated members. These rituals are ancient, passed down through generations, meant to bind sisters together through shared experience and mystery. You are sworn to secrecy, and you take that oath seriously. The rituals involve candles, symbolic objects, recited vows, and a sense of gravity that makes even the most cynical girl feel something stir inside her. You do not talk about the rituals, you do not write them down. They exist in a sacred space separate from the everyday chaos of college life. Your initiation happens on a Saturday night in late fall, after months of pledging, memorizing, serving, proving yourself worthy. You're told to dress formally, to arrive at the house by 7, to speak to no one about what is coming. You comply, your stomach tight with nerves and anticipation, unsure what to expect but knowing it will be significant, transformative, something you will carry with you always. You arrive and are led with the other pledges to a room you've never entered before, a small space on the second floor usually kept locked. Inside it is dimly lit, furnished simply with chairs arranged in a circle. An older sister, a ritual chair whose role you do not fully understand, instructs you to sit, to remain silent, to wait. You do, your hands folded in your lap, your heart beating faster than it should. The door closes. The room falls silent except for your collective breathing. You glance at your fellow pledges, seeing your own nervousness reflected in their faces. Then the door opens again, and the initiated members file in, dressed in white, carrying candles, moving with a solemnity that transforms them from your laughing, gossiping sisters into something else, something ceremonial and otherworldly. The ritual begins. You cannot describe it, not because you do not remember, but because you swore an oath not to. But you can say this: it is beautiful, it is moving, it involves words spoken in unison, vows made, symbols explained, meanings revealed that suddenly make the past months of pledging make sense. You understand now why your sisters take this seriously, why alumni travel back for initiations, why the letters you will soon wear mean more than decoration. You're handed a candle. You light it from the candle of the sister beside you, watching the flame catch and grow. The room fills with soft golden light, dancing across the walls, across the faces of your sisters, across the symbolic objects placed carefully on a table in the centre. You recite words you've been taught, words that feel strange in your mouth at first, but then settle, become yours. Something shifts inside you during the ritual. You cannot name it exactly, but you feel it, a sense of connection, of belonging, of being part of something larger and older than yourself. You're no longer just a college student living in a house with other girls. You're a sister now, bound by shared secrets, shared history, shared promises. When it ends, you are embraced, welcomed, congratulated. Your sisters, the ones who seem so distant during pledging, now hold you tightly, whisper that they are glad you made it, that they knew you would. You blink back tears, overwhelmed by emotion you did not expect to feel, surprised by how much this moment matters. Later, back in your room, still in your formal dress, you sit on your bed and touch the pin now fastened to your clothing, the Greek letters you have earned. Linda sits beside you, equally quiet, equally moved. Barbara, always practical, simply says, "Well, we're really sisters now, and she is right. Something has changed. The rituals, whatever they were, whatever they meant, have transformed you from pledge to member, from outsider to insider. You will never speak of the rituals to anyone outside the chapter, not to friends, not to family, not even to other sorority members from different chapters. The secrecy is part of the power, part of what makes the experience sacred. The rituals exist in a protected space, preserved across decades, unchanged, unchanging, a thread connecting you to every woman who has ever worn your letters. And in the years to come, when you are older, when college feels like a distant memory, you will still remember that night. The candles, the vows, the feeling of standing in a room full of women who had chosen you, accepted you, made you one of them. The rituals gave you something words cannot quite capture. They gave you belonging. They gave you identity. They gave you a secret to keep, and in keeping it, you became part of something timeless. Greek life in the 1960s is competitive, and rivalry between sororities is real, subtle, and occasionally vicious. You do not openly insult other houses. That would be unladylike, but you whisper about them. You compare pledge classes, social calendars, grades, and reputations. You judge other houses for being too wild, too snobby, too academic, or not academic enough. The rivalry is rarely acknowledged directly, but it colours everything: which fraternity mixes you attend, who sits where in the student union, and which houses are considered top tier. It is petty, it is exhausting, and it matters far more than it should. The hierarchy is unspoken, but universally understood. Every sorority on campus has a reputation, carefully cultivated or accidentally earned, and these reputations determine social standing, desirability during rush, and respect from fraternities. Your house is considered upper middle tier, well regarded but not elite, respectable but not intimidating. You are glad for this. Top tier houses face more scrutiny, more pressure, more judgment. Bottom tier houses face condescension, pity, and the constant struggle to be taken seriously. The rivalry manifests in small, petty ways. You walk past another sorority house and critique the state of their lawn, their choice of door wreath, the girls sitting on the porch. Too loud, Linda mutters. No class. You nod, agreeing, even though you know it is ridiculous to judge an entire house based on their outdoor furniture arrangement. But this is how it works. You find flaws, amplify them, use them to reinforce your own sense of superiority. During rush, the rivalry intensifies. Every house wants the best pledge class, the girls who are pretty, smart, well-connected, the ones who will enhance the chapter's reputation. You hear whispers about which houses are desperate, which ones are being picky, which ones are stealing your top recruits. You develop opinions about girls you've spoken to for 10 minutes, deciding they are perfect for your house or clearly better suited for another. The language is coded, but everyone understands it. That house is very social means they party too much. That house is very academic means they are boring. That house is very selective means they are snobs. That house is very spirited means they are try-hards. Every compliment contains a hidden insult. Every observation is a judgment. You also rank fraternities, deciding which ones are worth attending mixers with, which ones have the best reputation, which ones are too wild or too nerdy or too beneath your chapter's standards. The pairings matter. Being seen at a mixer with a top-tier fraternity boosts your house's status. Being stuck at a mixer with a struggling fraternity suggests your chapter is sliding. But the worst rivalry is with the house directly next door, a sorority that is almost exactly like yours, but just different enough to inspire resentment. They have a slightly better GPA. Your house has a better philanthropy record. They had a prettier pledge class last year. You had a better spring formal. The comparisons are endless, exhausting, and impossible to win because the goalpost constantly shifts. You see their members on campus and exchange tight smiles, overly friendly greetings that fool no one. You compliment their outfits through gritted teeth. They compliment yours with the same forced enthusiasm. You ask polite questions about their upcoming events, while secretly hoping those events fail miserably. They do the same. Sometimes the rivalry spills into genuine conflict. A fraternity invites both your houses to the same mixer, and the tension is thick, oppressive. Both sides trying to prove they are more fun, more attractive, more desirable. Or both houses compete for the same award, and the weeks leading up to the announcement are filled with whispered strategies, accusations of cheating, threats to report each other for rule violations. It is childish. You know this. In quiet moments, you admit to yourself that ranking houses, comparing pledge classes, and judging other girls based on their Greek affiliation is absurd. These are just groups of college students living in old houses. The differences between you are negligible. But the system demands hierarchy, and hierarchy demands competition, and competition demands that you participate or be left behind. So you whisper, you compare, you judge, you defend your house against perceived slights and imagined insults. You attend mixers with the right fraternities and avoid the wrong ones. You smile at rival houses and insult them the moment they turn away. You play the game because everyone plays the game, and opting out means admitting that maybe, just maybe, none of this matters as much as you pretend it does. Your wardrobe is not just your wardrobe. It is a reflection of the chapter, and it must meet certain standards. Skirts and dresses are required for most occasions. Slacks are allowed for casual activities, but never for class or formal events. You own multiple pairs of white gloves, several strings of pearls, and more cardigans than any human reasonably needs. Your clothing budget stretches painfully thin, because looking appropriate is expensive and second-hand is frowned upon. You learn to sew, to mend, to borrow from sisters, and to make one good outfit work for multiple occasions. The expectations are laid out clearly during new member orientation. Mrs. Henderson stands before your pledge class with the list, reading aloud the minimum wardrobe requirements: 3 skirts, 2 dresses suitable for class, 1 formal gown, 1 cocktail dress, cardigans in your chapter colours, pearls, real or convincing imitations, white gloves for tea and formal events, sensible heels for daily wear, dressy heels for evening events, a coat appropriate for winter. You listen, mentally calculating the cost, feeling your stomach drop. You came to college with a modest wardrobe, clothing chosen for practicality and budget, not elegance. The list Mrs. Henderson is reciting represents hundreds of dollars you do not have. Your parents have already stretched themselves thin paying tuition and chapter dues. Asking for more feels impossible, but the requirements are non-negotiable. Your appearance reflects on the chapter. Showing up to class in wrinkled clothing, showing up to tea without gloves, showing up to a formal event in the wrong type of dress. These are not just personal failures. They are chapter embarrassments. You must comply. So you get creative. You borrow from Linda, whose wardrobe is extensive and who does not mind sharing as long as you return things cleaned and pressed. You learn to sew, sitting at your desk with a needle and thread, hemming a skirt you bought too long, taking in a dress that does not quite fit. Your mother mails you a package containing 2 of her old cardigans, carefully washed and folded, and you wear them gratefully even though they are slightly out of style. You haunt the sales racks at the campus bookstore, searching for clearance items that meet chapter standards. You find a skirt marked down to $3, navy blue and perfectly appropriate. You buy it even though it means skipping lunch for the rest of the week. You learn that looking appropriate is worth more than eating well, a calculation you hate but cannot avoid. The chapter colours are burgundy and cream, and you are expected to wear them regularly, particularly to football games and chapter events. You own one burgundy cardigan, worn so often it is starting to pill. You pick at the little fabric balls during boring lectures, trying to make it look newer than it is. You search for a second burgundy sweater, but cannot find one you can afford. Eventually another sister takes pity on you and loans you hers indefinitely, and you wear it with gratitude and guilt. Pearls are essential, the uniform of sorority girls everywhere. Your grandmother gave you a strand for graduation, real pearls, beautiful and delicate. You wear them constantly, to class, to tea, to dinner. They become part of your identity, resting against your collarbone, cool and smooth. You panic the day you think you have lost them, tearing apart your room, searching frantically, finding them finally under your bed where they had rolled after breaking one night. You spend an hour restringing them yourself, your hands shaking, terrified you will lose these precious things. White gloves are required for formal events, and you own 2 pairs. One for tea and daytime events, simple cotton gloves that cover your hands and wrists. One for evening events, longer gloves made of satin that reach past your elbows and make you feel like you are playing dress-up. You hand wash them carefully, hanging them to dry, knowing that replacing them would cost money you do not have. Laundry is a constant concern. Your wardrobe is small, which means you wear the same outfits repeatedly, cycling through them, washing them, pressing them, hoping no one notices. You learn to spot clean between washes, dabbing at stains with a damp cloth, spraying perfume on clothing that smells worn. You learn that appearances matter more than reality, that looking fresh is more important than actually being fresh. Sometimes, late at night, you resent the wardrobe expectations, the pressure to look a certain way, to spend money you do not have, to maintain an image that feels false. You think about girls at other colleges, girls who wear jeans to class, who do not own pearls or white gloves, who are not judged based on whether their skirt is the right length or their cardigan is the right colour. But then you put on your pearls, smooth your skirt, check your appearance in the mirror, and step out the door looking polished, appropriate, exactly like a sorority girl should. And despite everything, despite the cost and the effort and the unfairness of it all, part of you feels proud. You look put together. You look like you belong. And in 1962, that matters more than comfort ever could. Full Saturdays mean football, and football means tradition. You dress in your chapter colours, pin on your letters, and walk with your sisters to the stadium. The game itself is secondary to the spectacle. The marching band, the cheerleaders, the alumni tailgates, the sense of belonging to something larger than yourself. You cheer loudly, even when you do not fully understand the rules. You wave at fraternity boys. You take photos with your sisters, everyone smiling, arms linked, hair perfect. Football Saturdays are exhausting, exhilarating, and essential to the college experience you signed up for. Game day begins early, with a special breakfast served at 9 instead of the usual 7:30. Pancakes, sausages, orange juice, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The dining room buzzes with excitement, girls chattering about the game, about who they hope to see, about plans for after. Mrs. Henderson allows the noise, even smiles at it, because football Saturdays are sacred, exempt from normal rules of decorum. After breakfast, you return to your room to get ready. This is not casual dressing. This is coordinated, calculated, a group effort. You wear your burgundy cardigan naturally, over a white blouse and a cream-coloured skirt. Linda wears the same colours in a different combination. Barbara, practical as always, wears slacks, which Mrs. Henderson permits for stadium seating but only on game days. You pin your letters carefully to your cardigan, making sure they are straight, visible, proud. You check your hair, your makeup, your shoes. You grab a blanket for the cold bleachers, a small purse with lipstick and tissues, and your gloves in case the weather turns. You are ready. The walk to the stadium is a procession. Every sorority and fraternity makes the trek together, groups of 50 or more students dressed in their colours, laughing, singing fight songs, waving at other groups. Cars honk as they pass. Alumni lean out windows shouting chapter chants. The energy is electric, infectious, building with every block until you reach the stadium gates and the roar of the crowd washes over you like a wave. Inside, the stadium is chaos. Families spread out on the grass with picnic baskets. Students climb the bleachers, shouting for friends, claiming seats. The marching band warms up, their instruments clashing in discordant preparation. Cheerleaders practice their routines on the sidelines, their voices shrill, their movements sharp. You find your section, the one reserved for Greeks, and climb the metal bleachers, your heels ringing against the steps. You sit with your sisters, spreading blankets across the cold metal, arranging yourselves in a row, burgundy and cream visible from across the stadium. This is intentional. You are here to be seen, to represent, to prove that your chapter supports the team, the school, the tradition. The game begins. You stand for the national anthem, hand over your heart, singing loudly. The crowd roars as the teams run onto the field. The band plays the fight song and everyone sings, arms swaying, voices blending into one massive sound. You do not know all the words, but you fake it, caught up in the moment, in the collective enthusiasm. The game itself is confusing. You understand the basics. Touchdowns are good, the other team is bad, but the nuances escape you. What is a down? Why did the referee throw that flag? What does offside mean? You do not ask these questions aloud, because admitting ignorance feels embarrassing. Instead, you cheer when everyone else cheers, groan when everyone else groans, and pretend to follow along. At halftime, the band performs an elaborate show. You watch, clapping, marvelling at their precision. Around you, people leave to buy hot dogs, sodas, popcorn. You stay seated, your budget too tight for stadium food. Linda returns with a pretzel and offers you half. You take it gratefully, the salt sharp on your tongue. In the stands below, fraternity boys wave up at you. You wave back, smiling, nudging your sisters, pointing out who waved, speculating about whether it means anything. One of them climbs the bleachers and stops at your row, chatting briefly, asking if you will be at the mixer tonight. You say maybe, non-committal, aware that your sisters are listening, cataloguing every word. The second half drags. The weather turns colder. Your feet ache from the uncomfortable bleachers. The game is close, and the tension in the crowd ratchets higher with every play. When your team scores, the stadium erupts, everyone on their feet, screaming, hugging strangers, swept up in the victory. When the opposing team scores, the mood sours, groans echoing across the stands. Finally, mercifully, the game ends. Your team wins, and the celebration is immediate, loud, chaotic. The band plays the fight song again. Students pour onto the field. Your sisters stand gathering their blankets, their voices hoarse from cheering, their faces flushed from cold and excitement. You walk back to the house together, exhausted, exhilarated, arms linked, singing the fight song off-key. Football Saturdays are long, tiring, expensive in ways you cannot always afford, but they're also joyful, communal, a reminder that you are part of something, that you belong to this campus, this chapter, this moment. And for now, that is enough. Exchange dinners are formal events where your sorority hosts a fraternity, or vice versa. The dining room is decorated. The menu is planned weeks in advance. You dress up, practice polite conversation, and spend the evening proving that your chapter is gracious, charming, and desirable. The boys arrive promptly, wearing jackets and ties, and the evening unfolds with awkward small talk, forced laughter, and the unspoken pressure to make a good impression. Exchange dinners are meant to foster friendships and potential romances, but mostly they feel like performances, carefully choreographed dances where everyone plays their assigned role. The announcement comes during chapter meeting. The social chair stands, announces that your chapter will be hosting an exchange dinner with the Sigma Cheese on Friday. Attendance is mandatory, dress code is formal, behaviour expectations are high. You're representing the chapter. You're expected to be charming, engaging, ladylike. You nod along with everyone else, already dreading it. Preparation begins immediately. The dining room is cleaned until it sparkles. Fresh flowers are arranged in vases on every available surface. The good china is brought out, inspected for chips, washed and dried carefully. The menu is debated at length. Chicken seems safe. Fish seems fancy. Roast beef seems too heavy. Eventually chicken wins. On Friday, the kitchen is chaos. The house cook, a woman who normally works alone and unbothered, suddenly has a dozen volunteers who mostly get in her way. The chicken is roasted to golden perfection. Vegetables are steamed and seasoned. Dinner rolls are warmed. A cake is assembled for dessert, frosted in burgundy and cream. You dress carefully, choosing your best dress, the navy one with the white collar. You pin on your letters, apply lipstick, check your hair. Mrs. Henderson inspects everyone before the boys arrive, adjusting collars, straightening pins, reminding you to smile, to make eye contact, to be gracious. The doorbell rings at 6. The boys arrive in a group, all wearing jackets and ties, their hair slicked back, their expressions somewhere between confident and nervous. They file into the foyer, shaking hands with Mrs. Henderson, introducing themselves politely. You stand with your sisters, waiting, watching, already mentally pairing people based on who stands near whom. Dinner's announced. Everyone moves to the dining room, and this is where the awkwardness truly begins. The seating has been arranged carefully, alternating boys and girls, ensuring no one sits next to someone they know too well or too little. You find your place card and sit, smoothing your skirt, folding your hands in your lap. The boy next to you introduces himself. His name is Mike, or maybe Mark. You did not quite catch it over the noise. He's a junior, majoring in business, from somewhere in Ohio. He asks about your major. You tell him English. He nods, says that is interesting, his tone suggesting he finds it anything but. You ask about his classes. He talks about economics, something about supply curves and market equilibrium, information that slides past you without sticking. The conversation is stilted, polite, exhausting. You ask questions because you're supposed to. He answers because he is supposed to. Neither of you seems genuinely interested in what the other is saying, but you both smile, nod, pretend this is normal, pleasant, enjoyable. Dinner is served. The chicken is good, tender and well seasoned. The vegetables are fine. The conversation continues, moving through safe topics: football, classes, campus events, weather. No one mentions politics, the war, civil rights, anything real. These dinners exist in a bubble, separate from the world outside, where young people pretend the only things that matter are grades and mixes and whether the chicken is cooked properly. Across the table, Linda is laughing at something her dinner partner said, her laugh bright and musical, exactly the laugh she practices in the mirror. Barbara is discussing pre-med requirements with surprising animation, clearly relieved to have found someone who shares her interests. Other conversations buzz around you, some animated, some struggling, all performing the same ritual of forced socialization. Dessert arrives, cake sliced into neat portions, served with coffee or tea. You take small bites, trying to eat gracefully while also trying to keep the conversation going, which is harder than it should be. The boy next to you, Michael Mark, has run out of safe topics and resorted to describing his summer job in detail. You nod, murmur interested sounds, count the minutes until this ends. Finally, Mrs. Henderson stands, thanks the boys for coming, and the dinner concludes. Everyone rises, migrating to the living room for coffee and more forced conversation. Some people pair off, moving to corners to talk more privately. Others cluster in groups, safety in numbers. You stand with Linda and Barbara, balancing a coffee cup, smiling at boys who walk past, exhausted by the effort of being on. At 8:30, the boys prepare to leave. Goodbyes are said, hands shaken, thanks offered. Someone suggests they should do this again sometime. Everyone agrees, even though no one really wants to. The door closes behind them, and the moment they're gone, the formality shatters. Your sisters collapse onto sofas, kicking off their heels, groaning about how exhausting that was. "Well," Linda says, twirling her pearls, "I thought it was fun." Barbara rolls her eyes. "You thought the chicken was fun." You laugh, tired, relieved, grateful it is over. Exchange dinners serve a purpose, theoretically. They build relationships between houses, create opportunities for friendships or romances, uphold traditions of social interaction. But mostly they feel performative, exhausting, like being on stage for 3 hours with no intermission. You survived. That is what matters. And next time, when another house hosts, you will do it all over again. Laundry day in the sorority house is chaos. The house has 1 washing machine, 1 dryer, and 50 girls who all need clean clothes. You wake up early to claim a time slot, haul your basket downstairs and hope no one steals your spot. The laundry room smells like detergent, steam, and quiet desperation. You fold your clothes while chatting with whoever else is waiting, and you learn that even laundry can become a bonding experience when you're all suffering together. Losing a sock or shrinking a sweater is a minor tragedy. Finding your favourite blouse wrinkled beyond repair is grounds for genuine tears. There is a sign-up sheet posted outside the laundry room, divided into 30-minute slots from 6 a.m. to midnight. You sign up on Sunday night for Monday morning, hoping to claim a slot before classes. But when you wake up Monday and check the sheet, someone has crossed out your name and written theirs instead. You stare at the sheet, exhausted, betrayed, wondering who would do this. You never find out. So you wait, lurking near the laundry room, hoping someone will be late, will miss their slot, will give you an opening. At 9:30, a slot opens. You grab your basket and run downstairs before anyone else can claim it. The laundry room is small, cramped, located in the basement next to the furnace. It is always too hot, too humid, the air thick with the smell of detergent and damp fabric. The washing machine is ancient, loud, prone to stopping mid-cycle for no apparent reason. The dryer is temperamental, sometimes drying clothes perfectly, sometimes returning them damp and wrinkled. You load your clothes carefully, sorting whites from colours, checking pockets for tissues that will disintegrate and coat everything in white fluff. You add detergent, close the lid, and turn the dial. The machine groans to life, water rushing in, the drum beginning its slow rotation. While you wait, you sit on the folding table, swinging your legs, chatting with whoever else is doing laundry. Today it's a sophomore named Jean, who's folding towels with military precision. She complains about her roommate leaving dishes in the sink. You commiserate, mention your own roommate frustrations. The conversation meanders through complaints about classes, boys, the dining hall food, the weather. The washing machine stops suddenly, mid-cycle, as it often does. You get up, jiggle the lid, Press buttons at random and somehow it starts again. Jean shakes her head. That thing should have been replaced years ago. When your wash cycle finishes, you transfer everything to the dryer, selecting medium heat, hoping your sweater does not shrink. You have lost 2 sweaters already this semester to the dryer's unpredictable heat. You set the timer for 40 minutes and return upstairs, knowing you need to come back promptly, or someone will remove your clothes and dump them on the table. But classes run long, and when you finally make it back downstairs, your clothes are indeed piled on the table, still warm but now wrinkled from being handled by someone else. You sigh, gather them into your basket and carry them upstairs. Folding happens on your bed, a meditative process that gives you time to think, to process the day. You fold each item carefully, smoothing wrinkles, checking for stains you might have missed. Your favourite blouse, the cream one with the lace collar, emerges from the basket wrinkled beyond recognition. You hold it up, dismayed. You will have to iron it, which means waiting for the iron, which is also shared, also a source of conflict. Linda walks in, sees your expression, and laughs. Dryer again? You nod miserably. She offers to loan you one of hers for tomorrow. You accept gratefully, adding this to the growing list of borrowed items you need to return. Later that evening, you discover one of your socks is missing, vanished into the mysterious void where laundry room socks go to die. You have lost 6 socks this semester. Somewhere in this house, there is a drawer full of mismatched socks, orphaned, waiting for partners that will never return. Laundry day is frustrating, chaotic, time-consuming. But it is also strangely communal. Everyone suffers through it together. Everyone loses socks, shrinks sweaters, forgets to sort colours and ends up with pink underwear. You complain together, laugh together, share tips for removing stains and restoring shrunken clothes. And in those humid basement hours, waiting for machines to finish, folding clothes on rickety tables, you learn that even the most mundane tasks can build connection when you're doing them alongside people who understand exactly how you feel. Spring formal is the event of the year, the night every girl circles on her calendar and plans for months in advance. You need a date, a dress, and the emotional stamina to survive an evening of high expectations and social performance. The formal is held off campus, usually at a hotel ballroom or country club, and it is elegant, glamorous, and slightly nerve-wracking. You dance, you laugh, you pose for photos, and you try to look like you're having the time of your life, even when your feet hurt and your date is stepping on your toes. Spring formal is beautiful. It is also a reminder that even joy in this world comes with pressure. Planning begins in January, 3 months before the actual event. The social chair announces the date, the location, the theme. This year it is Enchanted Garden, which means floral decorations, pastel colours, and probably some awkward interpretation of what an enchanted garden looks like. Tickets go on sale immediately, $20 per couple, and everyone scrambles to secure their spots. First, you need a date. This is the most stressful part. Some girls have boyfriends, steady dates who will obviously accompany them. Others, like you, need to find someone, which means either asking someone yourself or hoping someone asks you. The weeks leading up to the formal are filled with anxiety, whispered conversations about who is taking whom, speculation about who will be left without a date. Finally, mercifully, a boy from your economics class asks you. He is nice, polite, not someone you are particularly interested in romantically, but someone who will make a perfectly acceptable date. You accept, relieved, grateful to check this worry off your list. Next comes the dress. This is somehow even more stressful than finding a date. You spend weekends shopping with your sisters, visiting every dress shop within a 10-mile radius, trying on dozens of gowns, searching for something perfect, affordable, and not identical to what anyone else is wearing. The options are overwhelming. Too formal, too casual, too expensive, too outdated, wrong colour, wrong style, wrong fit. You finally find one in a small boutique near campus, a pale pink gown with a full skirt and delicate beading on the bodice. It is more than you want to spend, more than you should spend, but it fits perfectly and makes you feel beautiful. You buy it, then immediately panic about the cost, about the matching shoes you still need, about the hair appointment you cannot afford. The weeks blur by, fittings, alterations, accessory shopping, planning with your sisters about transportation, about hair and makeup, about the after party someone is hosting. The formal becomes all anyone talks about, a shared obsession that fills every conversation. The day of the formal arrives. You spend the entire afternoon getting ready, a group effort involving all your roommates and half your floor. Hair is curled, teased, sprayed into elaborate updos. Makeup is applied with careful precision. Dresses are zipped, jewellery fastened, shoes slipped on. When you finally look in the mirror, you barely recognise yourself. You look glamorous, sophisticated, like someone from a magazine. Your sisters gather around, complimenting each other, taking photos, preserving this moment before it is over. Your date arrives at 6, nervous in his tuxedo, carrying a corsage that matches your dress. He pins it carefully to your gown, his hands shaking slightly. Mrs. Henderson takes photos on the front steps, your date standing stiffly beside you, both of you smiling so hard your faces hurt. The ballroom is transformed when you arrive. White lights strung across the ceiling, floral centerpieces on every table, a live band on stage playing soft background music. You find your table, sit with your sisters and their dates, and the evening officially begins. Dinner is served, multiple courses, more formal than anything you've eaten all year. You eat carefully, aware of your dress, your posture, the way everyone is watching everyone else. Conversation flows easily at your table, jokes and stories, laughter that feels genuine for the first time all night. Then comes dancing. The band plays slow songs, fast songs, fight songs that everyone sings along to. Your date is not a good dancer, stepping on your toes repeatedly, but he is earnest, apologetic, and you find yourself enjoying it despite the pain in your feet. You dance with your sisters too, in groups, laughing, spinning, creating memories you know you will treasure. Photographers circulate, capturing moments. You pose with your date, with your sisters, with the whole chapter gathered together, arms linked, smiling. These photos will appear in the yearbook, evidence that you were here, that you were part of this. As the night wears on, your feet ache from your heels, your face hurts from smiling, your energy flags. But you push through, determined to enjoy every moment, aware that this night has been months in the making and will be over too soon. At midnight the formal ends. Everyone gathers their things, says goodbyes, makes plans for after parties. Your date drives you back to the house, walks you to the door, tells you he had a wonderful time. You thank him, genuinely, and slip inside, exhausted. Upstairs you collapse on your bed, still in your gown, your sisters doing the same. Someone declares it was perfect. Someone else says her feet will never recover. You all laugh, tired, happy, relieved it is over, but also sad that it is over. Spring formal was beautiful. It was also expensive, exhausting, stressful. But as you drift towards sleep, still wearing your jewellery, your dress spread around you like a pink cloud, you admit that it was worth it. For one night you felt magical. And sometimes that is enough. Your sorority does not end at graduation. Alumni expect you to stay involved, to donate, to attend events, and to uphold the chapter's reputation for the rest of your life. Alumni visit the house regularly, dispensing advice, judgment, and stories about how things were better in their day. They scrutinize everything: your grades, your behavior, your appearance. They are proud of you, fiercely so, but their pride comes with expectations. You are not just a college student. You're a lifelong representative of the chapter, and that weight never fully lifts. The alumni arrive unannounced, or sometimes announced but with such short notice you cannot prepare properly. They sweep into the house wearing tailored suits, their hair styled in ways that suggest regular salon appointments, their jewellery understated but expensive. They greet Mrs. Henderson like old friends, which they are, having lived in this house decades ago, having slept in the same rooms, eaten at the same table, followed the same rules you now follow. They inspect the house with eagle eyes. They notice the scuff mark on the baseboard in the hallway. They comment on the faded curtains in the living room. They ask pointed questions about chapter finances, membership numbers, grade point averages. They flip through the guest book, noting who has visited recently, making small disapproving sounds when they recognize names of alumni who have not been back in years. During chapter meetings, when alumni attend, the atmosphere shifts. Everyone sits straighter, speaks more carefully, performs competence and dedication with extra precision. The alumni sit in the back, observing, occasionally interrupting to offer corrections or suggestions. When you are pledging, they remind you, we clean the house ourselves. When we were in school, chapter meetings never ran past 9. When we wore our letters, we represented them every single moment. The stories are always the same. Things were harder in their day. Standards were higher. Girls were more committed. The clear implication is that your generation is softer, lazier, less devoted to the traditions they held sacred. You nod politely, bite your tongue, resist pointing out that maybe, just maybe, their memories are selective, edited by time into a highlight reel that omits the complaints they surely had when they were in your position. But you also understand their investment. These women donated money to renovate the house. They endowed scholarships. They pulled strings to get members internships and jobs. Their names are carved into plaques on the walls. Their photos line the hallways. Their legacy is woven into every tradition you observe. They gave their youth to this chapter, and now they are watching to ensure you do not squander what they built. After graduation, they expect you to join the Alumni Association, to attend quarterly luncheons, to donate annually even when your entry-level salary barely covers rent. They send newsletters filled with updates about sisters you barely knew, announcements about fundraising campaigns, invitations to homecoming events you cannot afford to attend. The expectation of lifelong involvement is presented as an honour, a privilege, a natural continuation of the bonds formed in college. And in some ways, it is. Years later, when you move to a new city, an alumna you have never met invites you to dinner, welcomes you into her home, helps you find an apartment, introduces you to her network. When you are job hunting, another alumna sees your resume cross her desk, notices the Greek letters, and calls you in for an interview. The connections are real, valuable, sometimes life-changing. But the pressure is real too. You receive letters asking for donations, gentle at first, then increasingly pointed. They remind you that alumni giving rates affect the chapter's standing with the national organisation. They mention that your graduating class has the lowest donation rate in recent history. They suggest that perhaps you have forgotten the opportunities the chapter gave you, the doors it opened, the woman it helped you become. You write a cheque for $25, the most you can afford, and mail it with guilt clinging to the envelope. You wonder if it is enough, if you are enough, if you will ever be able to give back what you received. The answer is probably no. The debt feels infinite, unmeasurable, a weight you will carry long after your college years fade into nostalgia. Sometimes you resent it. this expectation of eternal loyalty, this assumption that 4 years in a house on Greek Row should dictate your commitments for decades to come. But other times, you feel grateful. Grateful for the network that catches you when you stumble. Grateful for the women who remember your name years later. Grateful for the sense of belonging that persists long after you have left campus, moved away, built a life that looks nothing like the one you imagined during those formal dinners and football Saturdays. The alumni are demanding, critical, sometimes exhausting, but they are also proof that this thing you are living through, this strange, intense, sometimes ridiculous sorority experience, will outlast college. The letters you wear are not temporary. They are permanent ink on your life story, and the women who wore them before you will never let you forget it. Gossip in the sorority house spreads faster than wildfire. Someone saw your date kissing another girl. Someone heard you failed a test. Someone noticed you came home crying last night. The gossip is rarely malicious, but it is constant, relentless, and impossible to escape. You learn to guard your secrets carefully, to choose your confidants wisely, and to accept that living with 50 other women means your life is never entirely your own. Privacy is a myth, gossip is currency, and everyone, eventually, becomes the subject of a whispered conversation. It starts innocently enough. You mention to Linda that you think you might have bombed your history exam. She mentions it to Barbara, who mentions it to her lab partner, who mentions it at lunch to 3 other girls. By dinner, half the house knows you failed your exam, even though you do not know yet whether you actually failed. The story has grown legs, walked through every room, and returned to you transformed, exaggerated, already part of house mythology. The telephone booth is gossip central. When someone receives a call, whoever is standing nearby listens, filing away information for later discussion. Your voice carries, your words are heard, and within minutes the details are circulating. He called her. She said yes. They're going out Friday. Did you hear the way she laughed? Do you think it is serious? The dining room is worse. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, all provide opportunities for information exchange. You sit down to eat scrambled eggs and suddenly someone across the table leans forward, voice dropping conspiratorially. Did you hear about Susan? Your ears perk up involuntarily, even though you know you should not care, should not participate, should rise above the gossip. But you are human. You lean in, you listen. Some gossip is harmless. Who is dating whom? Who wore what to class? Who got asked to a mixer? These topics float through conversations like weather updates, background noise that no one takes seriously. But other gossip cuts deeper. Whispers about a girl who might be pregnant. Speculation about whether someone is having an eating disorder. Rumours that a sister hooked up with someone's boyfriend. These stories spread with the same speed but carry more weight, more judgment, more potential for real harm. You become the subject of gossip more often than you would like. When you start dating someone, the house discusses it endlessly. When you come home late one night, eyes red from crying, everyone wants to know what happened. When you wear the same outfit 3 days in a row, someone speculates aloud whether you're struggling financially. The attention is suffocating, invasive, but also strangely communal. They gossip because they care, because your life intersects with theirs, because in this house, everyone's business is everyone's business. You learn to navigate it carefully. You share certain things openly, controlling the narrative before someone else does. You keep other things locked tight, confiding only in your closest friends, knowing that even then, the information might leak. You become skilled at deflection, at changing subjects, at smiling mysteriously when someone asks a probing question. But you also participate. You cannot help it. When Linda comes back from a date looking flustered, you ask what happened. When Barbara mentions she might drop her chemistry class, you discuss it with others, speculating about her reasons. You tell yourself you are just being interested, concerned, a good friend. But you know it is gossip, the same gossip you resent when it is about you. The worst gossip happens late at night, in bedrooms, when inhibitions are low and secrets feel safe. Someone shares something told in confidence. Someone else adds details they heard elsewhere. The story grows, morphs, becomes something different from the truth. And by morning, a rumour has solidified into accepted fact, even though no one bothered to verify whether it was accurate. Sometimes the gossip is cruel. A girl gains weight, and people whisper about it, making judgments about her discipline, her attractiveness, her worth. A girl breaks up with her boyfriend, and people debate whose fault it was, picking sides, spreading blame. A girl does poorly in Rush, and people question whether she deserves her letters, whether she fits the chapter image, whether she should even be here. You watch this happen, sometimes participate in it, and feel complicit, guilty, aware that you are part of a system that thrives on scrutiny, judgment, and the constant surveillance of each other's lives. You promise yourself you will be better, kinder, less interested in other people's drama. But the next day someone leans over at lunch and says, "Did you hear?" And you lean in, unable to resist. Living in a sorority house means living in a fishbowl where 50 sets of eyes are always watching, 50 pairs of ears always listening, 50 mouths always ready to share what they have seen and heard. Privacy is impossible, secrets are temporary, and gossip, well, gossip is the soundtrack of daily life, playing constantly in the background, shaping relationships, destroying reputations, and binding you all together in a complicated web of shared information and mutual surveillance. You hate it, you participate in it, and you cannot imagine life without it. Despite the constant company, loneliness finds you. You miss your family, your childhood bedroom, the freedom to be yourself without an audience. You miss making decisions without committee approval. You miss quiet. You lie in your narrow bed at night, listening to your roommates breathe, and you feel achingly alone in a house full of people. Homesickness is not something you talk about openly, because admitting it feels like failure. But it is there, a quiet ache that surfaces in unexpected moments. It hits you hardest on Sunday afternoons, when the house is relatively quiet, everyone's scattered, studying or napping or off campus. You lie on your bed, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly you are overwhelmed by longing for home. Not this house, your real home. The one where your mother makes pot roast on Sundays, where your father reads the newspaper in his chair, where your little brother leaves his shoes in the middle of the hallway. You miss your bedroom, the one you had all to yourself, where you could close the door and be truly alone. You miss the wallpaper you picked out when you were 12, the bookshelf stuffed with childhood favourites, the window that overlooked the backyard where you spent summer evenings catching fireflies. That room was yours completely, in a way nothing here is yours. You miss the freedom to be messy, to leave clothes on the floor, to cry without worrying that someone will hear and ask questions. You miss privacy, real privacy, the kind where you can spend an entire day in pyjamas without anyone commenting on it. Here, everything is observed, noted, discussed. You cannot have a bad day without it becoming house knowledge. You miss your mother's cooking, real food that tastes like comfort instead of institutional efficiency. You miss family dinners where conversation flows naturally, where you do not have to monitor your posture or use the right fork or make polite small talk with people you barely know. You miss the ease of being around people who know you, really know you, who do not require performance or explanation. The phone calls home make it worse. You call every Sunday evening standing in the cramped telephone booth, feeding quarters into the slot, waiting for your mother to answer. When she does, her voice sounds so far away, tinny and distant through the telephone line. She asks how you are. You say fine, always fine. Because admitting you are homesick feels like admitting you cannot handle college, cannot handle independence, cannot handle being an adult. She tells you about home. Your father fixed the porch steps. Your brother made the basketball team. The neighbours got a new dog. Ordinary news that makes your throat tight, that reminds you of a life continuing without you, a life you're no longer part of. When the call ends, when you hang up and step out of the booth, you feel worse than before, the longing sharper, more painful. At night, lying in bed, you listen to Linda's soft snoring, Barbara's occasional sleep-talking, and you feel desperately lonely despite being 6 feet away from other people. This is a different kind of loneliness, the kind that exists in crowds, the kind that comes from being constantly surrounded but never truly alone, never truly yourself. You think about quitting sometimes, just packing your bags, going home, enrolling at the local college where you could live with your parents and avoid all of this, but you know you will not. Quitting means admitting defeat. Quitting means disappointing your family, who are so proud you got into this school, joined this sorority, are having the college experience they never had. So you stay, and you smile, and you pretend the homesickness is not eating you alive. Some days are harder than others. Your birthday passes, and your family cannot visit because it is too far, too expensive. You sit at the chapter birthday dinner, wearing a paper crown someone made while 50 girls sing to you. It should feel special. It feels hollow. These girls are wonderful, kind, your sisters in every official sense. But they are not your family. They do not know you the way your family knows you. Or the day you get sick with the flu, really sick, feverish and miserable. Mrs. Henderson brings you soup, checks your temperature, makes sure you have enough tissues. It is kind of her. But you want your mother. You want to be in your childhood bed, with your mother sitting beside you, her cool hand on your forehead, her presence making you feel safe in a way nothing else does. You learn to manage the homesickness, to push it down, to distract yourself with classes and activities and the constant demands of sorority life. You learn to find comfort in small things. A care package from home filled with your favourite cookies, a letter from your mother written on her good stationery, a phone call that ends with I love you. You learn that homesickness does not mean you are weak or incapable. It means you come from somewhere, that you have people who love you, that you built a life before this one and that life still matters. The ache never fully disappears, but it becomes bearable, familiar, a companion rather than an enemy. And someday, years from now, you will feel homesick for this place too. For the narrow bed and the shared room and the constant noise, for Sunday afternoons in a house full of sisters, for the years when you were young and everything felt both temporary and eternal. But right now, tonight, lying in the darkness, you miss your real home. And that is okay. It has to be okay. Because tomorrow you will wake up, smooth your skirt, pin on your letters, and keep going. You always do. But here is the truth. Despite the rules, the pressure, the gossip, and the exhaustion, sisterhood is real. The women you live with become your family. They hold you when you cry. They celebrate your victories. They cover for you when you break curfew. They know your secrets, your fears, your dreams. Years later, long after college ends, you will look back on these women and realize they shaped you, challenged you, and loved you in ways no one else could. Sorority life is complicated, messy, and imperfect. But the bonds you form here are real, and they last. The first time you truly understand this is the night you receive news that your grandmother has died. The phone call comes during dinner, and you take it in the booth, your hands shaking as you lift the receiver. Your mother's voice is gentle, careful, breaking the news as softly as anyone can break news that cannot be softened. You hang up, stand there frozen, unsure what to do, where to go, how to process grief in a house full of people who are eating dessert and laughing. Linda finds you first. She takes one look at your face and pulls you into a hug without asking questions. Then Barbara appears, and then others, and suddenly you are surrounded by sisters who are guiding you upstairs, away from the noise, into your room where they sit with you while you cry. They do not try to fix it. They just stay. Someone brings tissues, someone else brings water, someone holds your hand. They ask if you need anything, and when you cannot answer, they decide for you what you need. Over the next few days, they take care of everything. They sign you out of classes, explaining to professors that you have had a family emergency. They pack your bag when you need to go home for the funeral. They collect money for flowers, sign a card, make sure you know you're not alone in this. When you return, exhausted and hollowed out, they are waiting. They hug you, they feed you, they sit with you in silence because they understand that sometimes silence is all you can handle. This is sisterhood. Not the formal dinners or the matching outfits or the chapter meetings. This, the showing up when it matters, the holding each other through the hard things, the knowing when to speak and when to just be present. You see it in other moments too. When Barbara is overwhelmed by organic chemistry, staying up until 3 a.m. studying for an exam she's convinced she will fail, you and Linda stage an intervention. You make her take a break, walk with her around campus in the cold night air, quiz her on flashcards, remind her she is brilliant and capable and going to be a doctor someday. When she passes the exam, she cries from relief, and you cry with her, proud, invested in her success as if it were your own. When Linda gets her heart broken by a boy who promised her everything and delivered nothing, you watch her transform from bubbly and bright to quiet and withdrawn. You try to make her feel better with ice cream and bad movies and angry rants about how he never deserved her anyway. It takes weeks, but slowly she comes back to herself, laughing again, lighter. And when she does, she thanks you, tells you she could not have survived it without you. You believe her. You know you could not survive your own heartbreaks without her either. The bonds form in strange ways, unexpected ways. Late-night study sessions where you're all too tired to maintain pretense, where you laugh at stupid jokes and admit your fears about the future. Early morning breakfast shifts when you're the only ones awake, sharing coffee and comfortable silence. Long walks to class where conversations drift from trivial to profound and back again. You fight, of course. Living with 50 women means conflicts are inevitable. Someone borrows your sweater without asking. Someone says something thoughtless that hurts your feelings. Someone forgets to save you a seat at dinner. The fights are petty, ridiculous, the kind that feel enormous in the moment and absurd in retrospect. But you learn to apologize, to forgive, to move forward. Because holding grudges in a house this small makes life unbearable. Graduation approaches, and suddenly the end is visible, real, terrifying. You have spent 4 years complaining about the rules, the restrictions, the lack of freedom. But now that freedom is coming, you realize you are not ready. You do not want to leave this house, these women, this strange, complicated family you did not choose, but somehow chose you. The last chapter meeting is emotional. Girls cry openly, hugging each other, promising to stay in touch, to visit, to never lose what you have built here. You exchange addresses, phone numbers, plans to meet up in whatever cities you end up in. You sign yearbooks with inside jokes and heartfelt messages. You take photos, so many photos, trying to capture something that cannot be captured, trying to preserve a feeling that will fade the moment you drive away. On move-out day, you pack your belongings into boxes, strip your bed, take down the photos taped to your wall. The room looks smaller, emptier, already belonging to someone else. Linda hugs you so tightly you can barely breathe. Barbara, stoic Barbara, tears up and tells you she's glad you were her roommate. You tell her the same, meaning it completely. You carry your boxes down the stairs one final time, load them into your parents' car, take one last look at the house, the brick facade, the white columns, the porch where you spent so many evenings. It looks the same as it did 4 years ago when you first arrived, nervous and uncertain. But you are different now. This house changed you, and the women inside it changed you, and you will carry those changes forward into whatever comes next. Years later, you will receive wedding invitations from sisters you have not spoken to in months. You will attend, and the moment you see them, the years will collapse. You will fall back into old rhythms, old jokes, old ways of being together. You will introduce your children to each other, watch them play together, and feel grateful that these bonds survive distance and time, and the inevitable drifting apart that happens when lives take different paths. Sisterhood is not perfect. It is not always easy. But it is real, and it lasts, and it shapes you in ways you will spend the rest of your life understanding. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blanket, maybe take a moment to think about those young women who walked those polished hallways, who signed their names on curfew sheets, who whispered secrets in shared bedrooms lit only by moonlight. They were not living in a museum. They were just living, navigating a world of rules and expectations, trying to figure out who they were beneath the pearls and the pressed skirts and the constant performance of grace. They woke up early and curled their hair and studied until their eyes burned. They laughed at terrible jokes during formal dinners. They cried into pillows when no one was looking. They formed friendships that would outlast everything else. Bonds forged not in spite of the pressure, but sometimes because of it. They were imperfect, complicated, human, and they were doing their best with what they had, which is all any of us can ever do. The 1960s sorority house was many things at once: restrictive and protective, exhausting and exhilarating, isolating and deeply communal. It was a place where young women learned to navigate impossible standards while quietly beginning to question them, where sisterhood was both performed and deeply felt, where tradition and transformation existed side by side, uncomfortable roommates in a house that was always too small and somehow still too big. So maybe, as you drift towards sleep tonight, carry something small from their world into yours. The care they took with each other during hard moments, the quiet rebellions that changed nothing overnight but everything eventually, the knowledge that even in systems designed to shape you, you can still become yourself, slowly, carefully, stubbornly. History is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is a narrow bed in a shared room, and a telephone booth where secrets were whispered, and 50 young women trying to figure out how to grow up without losing themselves in the process. And that mattered. That has always mattered. Good night, and may your dreams be gentler than their curfews ever were,